Our stories start where two humans surrounded by a pack of wolf disaster misfortunes. The desperate boy fell to his knees. He said, if Master Li Jin had come out of the tower back then, the world wouldn't be like this now. However, the demon tower ahead suddenly began to shake violently, then directly exploded. After the dust settled, only a huge crater remained on the ground. But mysteriously, a figure appeared in the explosion's crater. That person's body emanated dark green lightning. Dare to stab me from behind and ambush me, you little bastards. You're all dead. Then Li Jian appeared directly in front of the two, under their shocked and fearful gaze. In just 2 or 3 moves, he cleared out all the surrounding disaster misfortunes. Seeing this, the two could hardly believe their eyes. Even high-level awakened ones struggled to deal with such disaster misfortunes. But for this person, it seemed as simple as crushing ants. Suddenly, the three felt the sky instantly darken. Looking up, they saw a massive wolf disaster misfortune staring at Li Jian. As crackling sounds came from the magic wolf's mouth, an extremely exaggerated beam of light shot directly from its mouth. An attack of such magnitude swept through the entire city. In an instant, half the city was turned to dust. However, when the dust settled, Li Jian stood there at the forefront completely unharmed. He revealed a playful smile, then leaped high into the air, shouting, "You, go to hell!" The two people beside him were so frightened they froze. In their eyes, the current Li Jian was an even more terrifying existence than the disaster misfortunes. Turning around, Li Jian chuckled and said, "Let's go eat and buy me some clothes while we're at it." Hearing this, the two stood stunned in place. A moment later, they arrived at a restaurant. In the blink of an eye, Li Jian ate 60,000 yuan worth of food. He also said, "I know you don't have much money, so I've been restraining myself." After eating and drinking his fill, Li Jian looked puzzledly at the young man. He said, "You look like an ordinary person, but I sense magic power from you." The other explained, "This is the grace bestowed by the sacred god, allowing me to awaken as a saint." "Aren't you the same? What garbage sacred god, why should I serve them?" Just then he suddenly noticed his reflection in the spoon. Li Jian's heart skipped a beat as he thought, "Holy crap, who is this handsome guy?" He suddenly stood up and asked, "Where is a mirror?" Then he quickly rushed to the mirror. Li Jian discovered that the horrible scars on his face had completely disappeared. Even his severed arm had miraculously regenerated, and in his palm appeared a mark. Before he could react, that mark gradually materialized into a physical form, emitting a faint green light. Then, an unbearably piercing pain shot through his arm. The next second, his consciousness was pulled into a vast and boundless space. Before him appeared an immensely huge, emerald-scaled giant serpent. When he came before the giant serpent, a mysterious and ethereal voice echoed in his ears. "You have experienced death, completed an impossible task. You have become the master of Ophiuchus, gaining super regeneration ability." In disbelief, he reached out to touch the giant serpent before him. The moment he made contact, the emerald-scaled giant serpent emitted a dazzling bright light. Before he could react, Li Jian's consciousness returned to reality. Seeing the two's dumbfounded expressions, he realized that besides himself, others couldn't see that giant serpent. Although he wasn't clear what exactly Ophiuchus was, he didn't sense any sacred god power. However, obtaining this power wasn't a bad thing. Thinking about being able to teach those who ambushed him a lesson, he became excited. At this time, the area near the demon tower had already been cordoned off by relevant departments. Seeing the demon tower turn to ruins, some believed it was maliciously destroyed. After all, only the demon tower was the landmark building associated with Li Jian. Seeing the enormous disaster misfortune's corpse lying nearby, some boldly speculated that Li Jian had returned. When Ari Saint Yang Wei received news about the demon tower, he immediately suspected Li Jian was still alive and had come out of the demon tower. But on second thought, he found his idea somewhat laughable. Surviving for 20 years in a horrifying place with over 1 million black disaster misfortune was impossible. At this time, Li Jian curiously stared at the phone before him. He hadn't expected technology to develop so rapidly in these 20 years. Phones could even connect to the internet. With the youth's help, Li Jian quickly found news about himself. After seeing comments from keyboard warriors who didn't know the truth, Li Jian was furious. When they saw the red eye back then, they all fled in fear. Yet they dare say they eliminated the red eye, but he quickly calmed his anger. Then he dialed a number from his memory. Meanwhile, on the other side, Sagittarius Saint Ugo Otus had just got off plane when he received news of the demon tower's collapse. This reminded him of 20 years ago, the day before the mission began. Ugo, who possessed the ability of prophecy, found Li Jian in advance and told him he might die in this mission. As a good friend, he hoped Li Jian would abandon this mission, but Li Jian didn't take it seriously, even saying if he could come back alive, he'd let Ugo treat him to fried chicken for 10 years. On the day of the mission, he stayed outside the tower, eliminating disaster misfortunes and guarding the exit at Li Jian's request. But in the end, came the news of Li Jian's death. That group who entered the tower actually abandoned Li Jian, only bringing back the Red Eye's head. Because of this achievement, including Ugo, the 12 saints were hailed as heroes by everyone and gained supreme authority. He never could believe Li Jian died just like that. Ugo countless times wanted other saints to enter the tower with him to search for Li Jian, but was refused by other saints. Without other saints' help, he couldn't save Li Jian and finally had to accept reality. Now 20 years had passed. No matter how strong Li Jian was, he couldn't possibly still be alive. Then Ugo received a prime minister. The prime minister told him the demon tower had collapsed. Black-level disaster misfortune corpse was found in the collapsed ruins. Li Jian might still be alive. Hearing this, Ugo sighed helplessly, then impatiently told the prime minister not to mention it anymore. Li Jian had sacrificed himself in the demon tower 20 years ago. But the prime minister's next words shocked him. Just now, Li Jian's special line had rung. Hearing this, he hurriedly patted the driver to stop the car. He suddenly remembered his phone had been ringing non-stop earlier. Could it be Li Jian? When he picked up his phone, he found there was a voice message. He put the phone to his ear and heard a very familiar voice. "Otus, I will find you, then kill you." Ugo was dumbfounded, completely dumbfounded. This voice, this tone, this really was Li Jian. At this time, a suddenly popping up news caught Li Jian's attention. It was news about the re-examination of Li Jian's will. Back then, he decided if he died, he would donate all his property to orphanages. Li Jian also wanted to see if they had properly executed this, but to his surprise, except for the Sagittarius saint, other saints had divided up his property. They even said it was to help them better save humanity. Li Jian could no longer contain his anger. He vowed to kill them, including the sacred gods behind them. At this time, Li Jian was also somewhat troubled, even if he told everyone he was back. But his current appearance differed too much from 20 years ago. Even if he told everyone he was Li Jian, he would be treated as mentally ill. However, at this moment, a system prompt appeared in his mind. Someone is watching you. At the same time, he also sensed a familiar aura. He had been wanting somewhere to vent his inner anger. Looking out of the restaurant, countless Aries attribute gods floated in the sky and arrogantly demanded Li Jian offer them sacrifices. A bunch of shameless people who only knew how to flatter, daring to come provoke him. Just as Li Jian was about to teach them a lesson, a couple passed by his side. They wore Gemini saint badges on their chests, continuously giggling and muttering. What era was this? How could people still discuss whether Li Jian was alive? Even if he was alive, he wouldn't have the face to call himself the 13th saint anymore. Li Jian quietly watched the approaching couple. The man contemptuously told Li Jian to get out of the way, then blew a puff of smoke in Li Jian's face, saying, "Idiot, don't block the way. What are you looking at? Fight me if you dare." Seeing Li Jian unmoved, the man immediately felt very uninteresting. After cursing coward, he turned to leave with the woman. Then they continued discussing their previous topic. Why would anyone like Li Jian, the weakest among the saints? Only idiots would like him. Hearing this, Li Jian could no longer endure. He shouted at the departing couple, "Hey, you two cockroaches over there." The incredulous couple turned to look at Li Jian together. Li Jian said, "Yes, you two." The man walked menacingly to Li Jian's front and said, "Say that again if you dare." However, before he could finish speaking, Li Jian directly extended his finger, then flicked the man flying. The man flew several meters away. Seeing this, the woman instantly appeared behind Li Jian, quickly condensing a golden light ball in her palm. Li Jian chuckled, extended his hand and flicked, blasting the woman into the building opposite. Seeing this, the two were directly frightened, frozen in place. The uncle nearby hurriedly said, "No matter what, you shouldn't use magic power on the main street." Li Jian said indifferently, "What are you saying? If I had used magic power, they would be dead." Then he directly came to the man's side and yanked off the Gemini badge from his chest. Li Jian was very curious why these guys would have sacred objects. These things should only be owned by saints, the youth patiently explained to Li Jian. It turned out that after Li Jian's death, the disaster misfortunes weren't completely eliminated. Humans could only continue to survive because of the sacred gods and the 12 saints chosen by them. But the power of these 12 saints alone wasn't enough to protect all lands, and the sacred god's power source was people's faith power. So the saints bestowed power upon humans who followed them and established sacred groups. And humans who awakened after receiving saints' power were called saints. So sacred gods would also bestow some sacred objects to those chosen saints. Hearing this, Li Jian clenched his fists. Such changes had actually occurred in these 20 years. Just then the Aries attribute gods came to Li Jian's front. Hoping Li Jian would kill this couple and promising him rewards, the man hurriedly advised Li Jian to do as the attribute gods required. Because they were like the shadows of sacred gods, opposing them was opposing sacred gods. At this time, Li Jian finally realized, so these guys were like him, only caring about themselves. However, Li Jian just calmly raised his left foot, then stomped violently on the ground. Instantly, a terrifying energy wave rapidly spread to the surroundings, directly killing all the attribute gods here. And their arranged barrier also instantly collapsed. At night, Li Jian followed the boy home. After taking a hot shower, he also trimmed his hairstyle. But when he walked out of the bathroom, he found the house full of ominous objects. These things were constantly attracting small disaster misfortunes like mosquitoes. The boy said these were all sacred objects blessed by saints. Before he finished speaking, Li Jian blasted these things to pieces. He hadn't expected these filthy saints not only occupied his property, but also sold low-level ominous objects everywhere. Just then, the boy's roommate suddenly opened the door. Seeing the mess in the room, Shenkai immediately became furious. After learning Li Jian had saved Hanji, Shenkai barely suppressed his inner anger. When Shenkai asked Li Jian's name and which sacred group he belonged to, Li Jian said, "Only those 12 idiots would serve sacred gods. I, Li Jian, don't need to." Upon hearing he claimed to be Li Jian, the angry Shenkai finally couldn't hold back, coming to someone's home, inexplicably breaking things and daring to impersonate Master Li Jian. Shenkai instantly burst out blazing blue flames from his whole body. Seeing this, Li Jian activated Ophiuchus' skill, God's Eye, and Shenkai's information appeared before his eyes in data form. Seeing this, Li Jian's figure flashed behind Shenkai, then extended his and directly flicked Shenkai away. Hanji was dumbfounded. Li Jian chuckled and said, "Shenkai is fine. Just fainted. I'm going to sleep first. He'll wake up soon." However, when he randomly opened a room door, he found the entire room filled with his statue models everywhere. Li Jian's face immediately darkened. Hanji explained, "Shenkai is Li Jian's devoted fan." Before Hanji could finish speaking, Li Jian directly broke off a statue's head. The heartbroken Shenkai instantly burst into tears. Meanwhile, in the Aries sacred temple, learning that all Aries attribute gods in H country had disappeared, Yang Wei was terrified because Li Jian was buried in the demon tower under H country's jurisdiction. He immediately thought of recent news discussing the possibility of Li Jian being alive due to his recent failure in conquering the Spider Queen in H country, plus this collective disappearance of attribute gods. If this continued, his position as a saint would be endangered. To dispel his concerns, Yang Wei immediately ordered subordinates to prepare a plane. He wanted to personally go to H country to see. On the other side, Shenkai were shopping for daily necessities in the supermarket. Hanji asked him, "Could that big brother really be Master Li Jian?" "I saw him come out of the demon tower." Shenkai said, "Absolutely impossible. Master Li Jian is humanity's great hero savior. How could he be that kind of thug?" However, at this moment, a figure suddenly passed between them. While shouts came from behind, "Catch that thief!" They immediately sensed this person must be a Scorpio saint. Scorpio saints possess speed beyond ordinary people, yet they never expected they would use such ability to rob. Just when this person was feeling smug that no one could stop him, Li Jian suddenly appeared and gave him a punch. The thief almost had his eyeballs pop out of his mouth. Just as Hanji was wondering why he would appear here, a bald man instantly appeared beside Li Jian. He said, "Judging by your aura, you seem like an ordinary saint. Next time in such situations, it's better to call the police first." Li Jian was confused. Where did this person come from? However, at this moment the entire mall began to shake violently. Seeing this, the thief, noticing no one was paying attention to him, immediately got up and desperately fled in one direction. He thought using his quick movement skills, he could escape from here immediately. But the next second, a giant mouth directly swallowed him. Then, many enormous insect disaster misfortunes suddenly burst out from underground. When the dust settled, people finally saw the disaster misfortune's true form. It was actually a red-level Spider Queen leading its army. At the Spider Queen's command, all disaster misfortunes charged towards the crowd. In an instant, the entire mall was thrown into chaos, people fleeing in all directions, just as a crying little boy was about to be swallowed by a disaster misfortune. At this moment, Li Jin descended from the sky, directly smashing the monster into the ground. He was about to ask if the boy was hurt, but the boy was instead frightened by Li Jin's sudden appearance and ran away. Facing the continuing onslaught of disaster misfortunes, Li Jin also decided to warm up his muscles here, and behind him gradually appeared the phantom of a giant snake. He was supposedly the Aries saint chosen by gods to save humanity, yet he actually wanted to bury alive everyone in the entire mall. It turned out that after failing to suppress the Spider Queen last time, he could only conceal the truth and seal her. Unexpectedly, the Spider Queen broke free so quickly. If the outside world learned he hadn't eliminated the Spider Queen, then his Aries sacred temple's reputation would surely suffer tremendous damage. To keep his secret, he directly ordered saints to go bury the entire mall. However, what he didn't know was that Li Jin, whom he thought died in the Demon Tower, was fighting desperately in the mall. Meanwhile, inside the supermarket, facing hundreds of thousands of disaster misfortunes, the bald Gemini man emanated waves of cold air from his body. He used his strongest skill, Ice Prison. He slammed the ground fiercely. Ice spikes instantly extended forward. Damn bugs, go die. The cold air instantly froze all disaster misfortunes it passed. However, before he could rejoice for half a second, the ice freezing the disaster misfortunes shattered in the blink of an eye. He never expected that as an S-rank saint, he couldn't even control the disaster misfortunes for a few seconds. At this time, Li Jin suddenly appeared in front of the bald man. He was holding many carbonated drinks. He directly threw all the carbonated drinks at the disaster misfortunes, then immediately charged forward. The disaster misfortune roared with all their might after several moves. Li Jin had eliminated all the disaster misfortunes before him. Then he received a system prompt. You have eliminated disaster misfortunes, increase Godseed experience, obtain crafting materials, forging function unlocked, can use materials to create skills and sacred objects. Seeing this, the two were simply in disbelief, and at this time, the bald man was even more shocked. The disaster misfortunes that even he as an S-rank couldn't eliminate, this person eliminated so easily. Then he pointed at Li Jin with a shocked face saying, "No wonder you seem familiar. So you're the criminal who attacked our Gemini saints." Before the bald man could finish speaking, Li Jin directly punched him in the face. He said, "You know too much. Also, how did you figure it out?" The bald man angrily pointed at Li Jin, shouting, "Aren't those clothes and sacred objects what you stole after robbing our saints?" And that sacred badge was bestowed by the Holy Lady. Li Jin just now noticed this thing on the clothes. Then he lightly pinched, and the Gemini sacred badge instantly shattered. What garbage sacred object? At most it's just a decoration. The bald man was infuriated. But just then, many survivors ran towards here, and behind them was the Spider Queen's enormous figure. Without a word, Li Jin immediately charged forward. His movements were agile. Dealing with the Spider Queen came naturally. After several exchanges, he knocked down the Spider Queen. People were shocked seeing someone could fight the Spider Queen. Could it be someone sent by the sacred gods to save us? Only the bald man's expression became very grave. Who exactly was he? Without even sacred objects, he could fight barehanded against disaster misfortunes at the Spider Queen's level. But just then, a familiar voice rang in the bald man and Shenkai's minds. All Gemini saints withdraw from the supermarket immediately. Soon after, the Aries saint will bury this entire mall. After receiving the team leader's retreat order, Shenkai and the bald man had disagreements. Shenkai was unwilling to abandon his friend and everyone in the supermarket to escape alone. Seeing Shenkai had no intention of leaving, but he couldn't disobey the Saint group leader's orders. He had no choice but to kill all the people Shenkai cared about, to make him escape with him. Seeing this, Shenkai immediately became alert, blue flames instantly surrounding his whole body, just as conflict between the two was about to erupt. However, the next second, a huge disaster misfortune figure directly smashed into the bald man. Then, Li Jin leaped down from the monster's body. He told Shenkai and the other to quickly escape from here. The two said the exits here had been blocked. They could either escape through the transmission array, but it could only transmit a few people, or eliminate all disaster misfortunes including the Spider Queen. Moreover, there were too many injured people in the supermarket, and outside the Aries saints were about to bury the entire supermarket. Hearing this, even Li Jin felt quite troubled. Just then, the bald man crawled out from the pile of rubble. He no longer wanted to care about these idiots before him. He directly took out his phone to contact outside to open transmission. But the next second, a spider web directly covered him. Before he could struggle, he was instantly swallowed by the Spider Queen. Seeing this, Li Jiang asked them to take care of those injured people and find a chance to escape. He will end the battle here as soon as possible. Meanwhile, outside, Airy Saint Yang Wei was directing his followers to begin the sealing ritual. Just as the seal was about to be completed, in the next instant, the sealing light shattered. A massive serpent broke through the seal and emerged. Then crowds of people rushed out of the supermarket shouting that a man had defeated the Spider Queen. Yang Wei's whole body trembled at the news. How could this be possible? Even he couldn't defeat that spider. With this thought, he decided to go investigate immediately. He rushed to the supermarket right away. When he arrived, he was shocked by the scene before him. The enormous corpse of the Spider Queen lay in the middle of the supermarket. Seeing the massive craters left by the battle scattered around, his scalp tingled with fear. Suddenly, he sensed a familiar presence. Yang Wei quickly went to the window to check. He discovered that Sagittarius Saint Yugo had also appeared here. Could Yugo be responsible for all this? However, at that moment, Yang Wei froze. A voice both familiar yet strange came from behind. Li Jiang said, "What's wrong? Are you feeling unwell?" That's all for today, guys. See you on the next upload.